On tonight's episode of Worst Roommates Ever, Stacy is a lonely young girl coping with a big move across town and her parents' very amicable divorce. Madeline seems like a sweet, totally alive old woman. At first, Stacy calls Madeline a friend. Madeline's nephew calls her Aunt Madeline, and the landlord calls her what tenant in apartment 214. Tonight we unravel the mystery of who is Madeline Kegel. Wait, am I pronouncing that right? Kegel? Okay. Anyway, my name is Brona. I've rented an apartment even. And this is Are You Afraid of the Snark? Once again, we find a group of children gathering in the darkened woods like an unsupervised coven of witches. Possibly, if we'd been watching these episodes in consecutive order, we'd know them by name. But we haven't, and we don't, except for Betty Ann. As far as I'm concerned at this point, she's the only one who even tells stories. Tonight, the most child one out of them all has stolen the pouch of magical fire dust, and our girl, Betty Ann, is like, if you spill that, Gary will gut you like a fish. Oh yeah, I guess we know his name too, because he's like the leader or whatever.
Put it down, Gary will freak. What is this stuff anyway?
Hey, don't touch the pouch.
Sorry.
The child wants to know what's in Gary's bag. What's so special about it? This bag that he doesn't let anyone else hold on to. The one he stashes away in the woods, away from his parents. The one he bought from that old white guy with the dreads and the Ani DeFranco tattoo and the bumper sticker that says, "Give peace a chance." No one will tell him. It's probably coffee whitener. Some other kid comes up out of nowhere complaining about how dead tired he is.
I'm dead.
Yeah, from the neck up.
Hey, you want to be dead from the neck down?
He goes on to tell everyone that he's tired because he was helping his brother move out, and I assume his brother was kicked out of the household for being a 90s homosexual. Our girl Betty Ann is so right when she says that moving is the worst.
Moving's the worst.
Kiki disagrees. She loves moving. She says, yeah, moving stuff isn't like fun or anything, but it is like a mystery and it's so exciting. What she doesn't say is that she's never actually moved anywhere before. Naturally, it's Kiki's turn to tell us tales, and she's got one about moving just for us. What a coincidence! After a quick false start because the child stole the dust again, Kiki submits for the approval of the Midnight Society, the tale of apartment 214. Stacy and her mom are just moving into a new apartment. Stacy is really f***ing going through it. Her parents have just recently separated and they've been extremely civil about it. They've just moved across town, so that means Stacy won't have any friends anymore. I don't know what it is about 90s kids in TV shows, but they move a couple blocks away and suddenly they can never see their friends ever again. To top it all off, the apartment is small. Her mother says this is all they can afford right now, but also you'd better get used to it because you'll be living in much smaller apartments when you grow up.
It's a lot smaller with all the stuff in here.
It's a little cramped.
Mom, a sardine can is a little cramped.
Okay, it's small, but it's all I could afford right now.
On their way back outside to bring in more boxes of junk, Stacy sees some creep in the apartment next to theirs slowly open the door to peer out. As they're rummaging through their trunk, a Russian man startles them so badly they drop a jar of pennies that they have for some reason, and it shatters. Hey! Remember, this is America in the 1990s. The Cold War had, just ended, if it ever really did. And to be honest, Americans are still just not so cool with Russians.
You scared me!
You don't park here.
I don't think the manager would mind. We're moving in.
I am manager. I do mind. You move car now.
Got her. So Stacy traipses on upstairs to fetch a broom and dustpan, and on her way, she sees the creeper open the door to apartment 214 again and close the door as Stacy enters her own apartment. That night, Stacy is out on the patio reading and sitting in a chair that I assume was found out on the street for garbage collection. She hears a lot of rustling, annoying her because she came out onto the patio of an apartment building right above a parking lot for some peace and quiet. Because she can't mind her own business, she peers over at the neighbor's window and sees them hastily shut the blinds. Probably because they don't want little girls peeping in their windows. Offended that somebody wouldn't let her invade their privacy, Stacy goes back inside to find her mom dead, asleep on the couch. "We can't move the body," she whispers as she covers her with a blanket. Suddenly, there's a rapping at her chamber door. And then she threw open the door, darkness there and nothing more. Except there is something more. Someone humming away doddily to themselves. Ever the one to not mind her own business, Stacy follows the sound of the humming to track down which neighbor it is so she can tell them to please keep it down because her mother is trying to sleep. She is led to apartment 214, the door yet again opened ajar, and she is about to push it open all the way when a hand that looks suspiciously like her mother's grabs her shoulder. Thank God, it is her mother.
Mom, you scared me.
What are you doing out here?
I thought I heard something.
Yeah, no shit, Stacy. It's an apartment building. Other people live here too. The next day, or maybe the day after, I don't really know. I'm just going out on a limb here and saying it's not weeks afterwards. On her way out of the apartment, Stacy makes a stop at her favorite spot, in front of the door of apartment 214. She tries peering through the peephole, which A, is weird and inappropriate, and B, you aren't going to see anything because that's not how peepholes work. She quickly cases the joint to ensure no one is watching and puts her ear to the door. But evidently, she's not great at espionage because immediately someone is like, "The f*** are you doing, you little weirdo?"
What are you doing? I was...
Like a pro, Stacy dodges answering the question by posing one of her own. "Who the f*** are you?" The girl's friend Trisha comes up out of nowhere and exclaims, "This is Mackenzie Zales, homecoming queen, head cheerleader, part-time model." Anyway, her name is actually Angela or apartment 212 or something, and her friends are theoretical at best.
I'm Angela. I live in 212.
Stacy doesn't care about all of that, however, and all she really wants to know is who lives in apartment 214.
Do you know who lives here?
I didn't think anyone did.
She knows where Stacy lives, though, and makes it pretty clear that she's been watching her, and maybe the person Stacy should be concerned about doesn't live in 214 after all. Stacy really likes that someone other than her mom is talking to her for once, so she asks Angela if she would like to hang out sometime, and she is thrilled when Angela gives a very soft maybe.
Would you want to hang out sometime?
Maybe.
Some other day, Stacy comes home to find her mom on the patio just beating the living shit out of a carpet.
Hey, Ma!
Hey!
I don't know if this carpet peed on the dog or what, but it's definitely in trouble. Before going inside, she takes a glance at apartment 214 because girl is obsessed, and she sees an old woman quickly pull herself inside and shut the door like a trapdoor spider that's been startled. Trigger warning. So Stacy marches on up to 214 and starts pounding on the door like, "I know you're in there," as if this poor old woman can't just live her life. There's no answer because this woman does not owe Stacy an explanation for her reclusive behavior. Stacy begins to walk away defeated when the door creaks open. Stacy barges in, and at that very moment, the old woman walks in from the kitchen on the complete opposite side of the apartment, holding a tea set. The woman is like, "Well, since you're always snooping around my apartment, I figured it's time to spill the tea."
I'm having some tea. Will you join me?
Embarrassed, Stacy tries to save face by complimenting the woman on her rudimentary paintings.
Are you an art collector or something?
The woman says they're originals by Meline Kegel, and coincidentally, I'm doing my exercises right now. Daring to seem uncultured, Stacy asks who that even is, and the old woman quite proudly declares that she is Meline Kegel. Again, unable to mind her own business, Stacy sees a painting of a family and asks if it's Madeline's family. Meline says she never had children or a family of her own, but it is a painting of her nephew, and he was very much like family to her.
Frank promised that I could always live with them, but when his family grew, he got tired of taking care of an old woman, so
he kicked her to the curb, and I guess set her up in an apartment. But then he stopped visiting her. I'd like to know more about this relationship from a perspective that isn't Madeline's. Regardless, Meline is very distraught about this because she had to leave all of her friends behind. Stacy knows how it is. When you move, you can never speak to any of your friends ever again.
I kind of lost all my friends, too. They're all back to my old neighborhood.
well, Stacy, we seem to have something in common.
This understanding is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Stacy comes over to Madeline's apartment every day, and Meline enlists her to do various housework. Meline keeps the tea flowing as she regales Stacy with stories about her own life, and as far as I can tell, she doesn't ever seem to ask Stacy about what's going on with her. It's perfect. Finally, after years of isolation, Meline finally has someone to visit her and also do her chores, and Stacy gets to visit an old woman. Anyway, one of these perfect days, Meline asks Stacy if she would be so kind as to visit her the next day. Stacy is like, yeah, I've been coming over every day for weeks. Of course I'll come over tomorrow. But Meline is weirdly pushy about it and forces her to promise.
Stacy, would you mind terribly if I asked you to drop by tomorrow?
No? What's up?
Promise?
No sweat.
Promise?
I'll be there.
Promise? Promise? Promise?
Promise.
Wonderful.
Oh yeah, and if she does come over, Madeline's got a little surprise for her.
I've got a surprise for you.
What is it?
You'll have to wait till tomorrow.
Okay, I'll see you then.
We cut to the next day, and just as Stacy is about to go see Meline, up comes the villain of our story, apartment 212.
Hey, 213s!
Hey, Angela.
Check these out. What are they? Tickets to the Battle of the Bands.
Stacy can't believe she got tickets. She didn't even know they were on sale, even though the concert is that night. Angela invites Stacy along, but Stacy, remembering a promise is a promise, is hesitant.
I promised someone that I'd visit them.
Stacy, this is the Battle of the Bands. I thought we were supposed to start hanging out together.
Yeah, Angela, you did give a very non-committal maybe and then never speak to her again for a few weeks, so I guess you were supposed to hang out. Seeing that Stacy is still not giving the yes she wants, Angela tells her that it's now or never, and her little manipulation tactic works. Stacy gets into the car with Angela and her family as Meline watches sorrowfully from her patio. When Stacy gets home that night, she is all too pleased with herself. She had an awesome time doing awesome shooters and just soaking up everyone's awesomeness. But then, as she is about to enter her apartment, she can hear the sounds of a woman sobbing.
Thanks, Angela. I had a great time.
Bye.
She pauses for a moment to consider if maybe it's not even Meline sobbing. Maybe it's just someone else, and maybe she didn't do anything wrong after all. But her guilty conscience gets the better of her, and she goes to see what's up. She enters apartment 214 to find all of the lights out, and Meline is somewhere here just crying in the dark. It's all very dramatic, and I'm very here for it. Stacy fumbles around in the dark looking for Meline and trying to apologize when suddenly lightning flashes, illuminating the foreboding figure of Meline Kegel.
Why did you break your promise?
This bitch is pressed. She is so pressed that she ghosts Stacy. The lights come on, and Stacy looks around to find a completely empty apartment. No Meline, not a lick of furniture, not a single ugly painting on the wall. When she goes to leave the room, the door is locked. She starts frantically shaking the doorknob, pounding on the door, screaming for help, but here's the thing. She's inside the apartment. That's where it locks from. You could just unlock the door, Stacy. But instead, she wakes up the building manager and he comes storming in, demanding to know why the fuck she's in this apartment. And she pleads the fifth and books it to her own apartment.
What are you doing in here?
After having to hear her daughter go on and on about this old woman who disappeared before her eyes, Stacy's mother goes to the building manager to ask if Meline had moved out last night.
If it is about plumbing, I have already got a complaint.
The manager is like, "Lady, I don't know who you're talking about. This apartment is empty. It was empty when you moved in. It was empty for years before you moved in. I can't rent that apartment out. Do you know a Meline who wants to move in? I'll move her in right now." Over the next little while, I guess nothing of any real relevance happens. Stacy wonders how she'll ever learn to live with her guilt over breaking a promise to someone she'll probably never see again. Her and Angela hang out more, I guess. She starts moving on with life. But then one night, Stacy's mom is going out to dinner with her dad. She asks if Stacy, a 14-year-old, will be okay staying alone for a couple of hours.
Okay, here's the number of the restaurant. Are you sure you're going to be okay by yourself?
Stacy rolls her eyes and says, "Yes, Mom, I'll be fine. Just go have dinner with Dad and come home married again."
Stacy, just because we're talking doesn't mean we're definitely getting back together. Understand?
A little bit later, Stacy hears a knock at the door and goes to look through the peephole. Shock! It's Meline. And she's returned because someone has been getting a little too complacent. When she opens the door, instead of Meline, she finds Nicky Nine Doors. Annoyed, or perhaps scared, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, Stacy knocks on Madeline's door, demanding to know what sort of sick game she's playing here.
Meline?
Getting no reply, Stacy barges right into the apartment to find it still empty. Except for a singular painting in the middle of the room. A painting of Meline and Stacy having tea together. Looking up from the painting, Stacy is startled to find Meline is right in front of her. Also, the apartment is refurnished and redecorated again. Who is Madeline's decorator? Because they are real fast.
Meline! What's going on?
You promised to visit me. I didn't want to be alone on that day. That day is the worst day, and you didn't come.
And does Stacy know why that was the worst day? Huh, Stacy? You want to know? Because that's the day that Meline died. Murdered in her own apartment, or had a heart attack, or something. But dead, Stacy. How would you like it if no one ever visited you in your apartment grave? Stacy runs back to her own apartment and locks the door. A notice slipped underneath. Stacy nervously picks it up. It says, "I know what you did last summer. Why did you break your promise?" Backing up, lightning flashes, and Stacy sees Meline clawing at the window. She runs over to Angela's apartment and cries for help, but Angela ignores her because she actually just doesn't like her all that much. She screams, but it's just the building manager. She screams again because he's Russian, and that's the only way she knows how to greet a Russian.
What for you scream? You go back your apartment.
I can't. Madeline's in there.
Who?
The old lady who lives in apartment 214.
I'm telling you, is no one there.
As much as she tries to go home and mind her own business, her dog, who I've only vaguely mentioned until now because he just hasn't been important, decides to take off to apartment 214. Bravely going after the dog, Stacy enters apartment 214 and walks up to a closet door, and for a moment, I forgot what show I was watching and fully braced myself for what she was going to find. Anyway, she finds a perfectly unharmed dog in the closet. Meline comes up behind her and starts demanding to know why she broke her promise, just like Madeline's nephew broke his promise, and just like how the president broke his promise about taxes.
You broke your promise. You're just like my nephew. How could you do this to me?
I wasn't trying to be mean. I just wanted to make a new friend.
And my friendship wasn't good enough for you, says Meline. After everything I've done for you, I invite you to my home. I let you listen to my stories. I offer you laced tea and never expect anything in return except that you vacuum my carpets and dust my paintings and clean my toilet. And this is the thanks I get, is how I would have expected this to go. But instead, Meline just reflects about how it's important to have friends. She should know because she has none, and all is forgiven.
It's very important to make friends, Stacy. You shouldn't have to be alone.
Stacy wonders if Meline is really dead, which seems rude, and also why she doesn't move on. Madeline's like, I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't really move on from things too well. I'm stubborn and I don't let things go, so I guess I'll just live here alone for the rest of eternity, scaring away anyone who tries to move in and then complaining that I have no company.
I'm much too old and set in my ways to move anywhere. This is my home and this is where I'm going to stay.
Is that why you scare off anyone who comes to look at the apartment?
Strangers traipsing through my home. How dare they?
Because she's uncomfortable seeing adults cry, Stacy's like, wait, I've got a plan. Stacy and her mother move into apartment 214. It's a bigger apartment, and what luck! The manager is willing to rent it out at a cheaper price. The mother can't understand why, but the manager jokingly tells her it's the living with a ghost discount. She says he's crazy for believing that. But Meline isn't paying any rent, and she's going to be living there whether you believe in her or not, so you had better be getting a discount. We return to the campfire, and Kiki tells us that Stacy made good on her broken promise, and they all lived happily ever after. Presumably, Stacy lives in this apartment for the rest of her life. So let that be a lesson to you. If you ever break a promise and hurt someone, all you have to do to make it up to them is move in with them, pay their rent, do their chores, and never leave them ever again. Easy. Gary dismisses the group and goes to put out the fire, but uh-oh, the youngest one has now taken the bucket. What a rascal. I don't remember this episode from growing up, but I did watch it randomly as an adult during a nostalgic Halloween watch party with a friend. There's actually quite a few really tense moments in this episode that have a good, suspenseful build-up. But then, because of the target age demographic, the reveal is anticlimactic and almost silly. It really made me laugh, and I made a lot of jokes watching it for the first time. It was actually watching this episode that I first got the idea of doing a series like this, so it had to be one of the first episodes I did. It's not one of my favorite Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes, but it's pretty solid. I'll give it 3 out of 5 upside down 9s on an apartment door. Please, please, please like and subscribe if you want to see more episodes of me making fun of a show that I'm actually really fond of. Let me know down in the comments what episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark you'd like to see me recap next, or even if there are other 90s shows or media you'd like to see me cover. You can follow me over at Twitter @BronaIsGay and support me on Patreon so I can keep being gay. See you at the next meeting of the Midnight Society. Bye!